Hi Fred, I'm here today to talk to you about white privilege. Well, that's something I can proudly say I was never part of. I was the son of poor, small farmers in the north of England. We worked for everything we have. Hey, but how did your parents get their first farm? Well, it was a land settlement holding. They rented it from the local council. I believe they had to qualify for it, have good references, show that they could prove that they could farm, have a good family background, and I think they had to have £300 in the bank. Yeah, that sounds right. My parents had to borrow the money from a friend. Yes, nice to have friends with money and good family background. There's a lot of immigrants in England at the time from the British Commonwealth, also from Eastern Europe, I believe World War II refugees. Do you know if they got any of these land settlement farms? Not as far as I know, but I only knew a few of the thousands who got farms. At their peak, 40% of British salads came from the land settlement farms, so it was a big deal. Well, I think you'll find that the selection criteria eliminated them. Let's talk about the land settlements and how they came into place. They were started after the First World War in about 1934 by putting common land into production to combat food shortages, but they greatly expanded after the Second World War between 1946 and 1955. After the Second World War, the Labour Party came into power and their idea was tax the rich and support the poor, but they could tax the rich because they was rich. These taxes forced the land owners to give up their land to make the payments. But these property owners and landowners became rich, like a lot of similar people in European countries, by obtaining their wealth directly or indirectly by exploiting Africa and Asian countries. Let's just look at a few examples of this. The British, Spanish and French fought a war, the Spanish War, between 1796 and 1802. There was never a conclusion to the war, since that wasn't the point. They were fighting over controlling access to trade routes to Africa and Asia. One of the most lucrative, which was largely controlled by the British, was the slave trade. Another big part of the trade that was also very lucrative was the opium trade with China. Now, of course, the Chinese government didn't like this and went to war with Britain. But at the time, China wasn't very powerful and they lost. So the British Empire was probably the biggest slave trader and the biggest drug trafficker of all times. This means that people in Britain got rich, either directly or indirectly, from this trade. The government could later tax these wealthy people and pass on to other people, such as your parents, in the form of a subsidized farm. Well, I don't see how we benefited from this. I worked hard at school. I got into university, even though I had a speech and learning impediments. I also had to settle for a job in the north of England because the southerners discriminated against the northerners. Well, so it's nice that you have a little understanding of discrimination, but let's now look at some of the ways you were advantaged. While you were growing up, you had free schools, free health care, subsidized food, subsidized universities. Well, all these were paid for by taxes, just the same as your parents' subsidized farm, from ill-gotten gains from the slave trade and drug trafficking. But I worked hard, saved money, and invested in saving plans and property to get where I am today. Yes, Fred. After you left university, you were able to get a job which qualified you to get a subsidized mortgage, and you got borrowed £500 from your parents and to get started. Again, you qualified for that mortgage using the same prejudicial criteria that enabled your parents to get their first farm. Similarly, when you came to America, you got cheap mortgages for both your house and your investment properties. I believe you made some good property investments, got a 90% mortgage, and became, quite wealthy out of your property management activities. Compare this to redlining, So while you got rich, other people don't even get a house. So you see, you've taken advantage of white privilege, even if you didn't know it, because you didn't see the other side of it. Yes, Bill, I get the point, but what can I do about it? Well, Fred, I guess you can look upon it like a 12-step program. Step 1 is recognizing there's a problem. Some people are privileged and some people aren't. So the first step is to recognize that. If you can get there, you've only got 11 more steps to go. Are you up to it? Jeez, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Thanks, Bill. Great talking to you again. Bye-bye.